Good evening, everybody. President Obama has decided to delay his amnesty executive order granting millions of illegal immigrants legal status until after the midterm elections. The Obama White House claims it has nothing to do with politics. The president flatly denied that the move has anything to do with preserving a Democratic majority in the Senate, despite polls that increasingly show a Republican takeover of the Senate after November's elections. Here is the president trying to spin, if you will, his decision.
And what I want to do is, when I take executive action, I want to make sure that it's sustainable. I want to make sure
the public's not behind you. You're
right
not taking
now,
it. That sounds a little bit like you're concerned the public wouldn't support what you did.
What I'm saying is that I'm going to act because it's the right thing for the country.
The president's decision roundly criticized by both Republicans who call it election year politics and Democrats who are pushing for outright amnesty. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell put it this way, saying, quote, "What's so cynical about today's immigration announcement is that the president isn't saying he'll follow the law. He's just saying he'll go around the law once it's too late for Americans to hold his party accountable in the November elections." Also tonight, President Obama to address the nation tomorrow Wednesday, about his new strategy to destroy the Islamic State terrorists. The president will outline the plan to House and Senate leaders tomorrow before making his case to the American public the next day. Senior White House officials tell Fox News President Obama will outline a three-phase strategy that includes airstrikes in Syria, which of course are underway, and which will outlast his term as president. We'll be taking all of this up with former Arkansas Governor, Fox News host Mike Huckabee right here in just moments. And how did the woman who is now NFL star Ray Rice's wife end up on the floor of the casino seen on your screen? We'll show you the newly released video that answers the question and take up the NFL's swift about face on Rice's future coming up. We begin tonight with the president's evolving strategy in dealing with the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. First, he had no strategy, but now the commander-in-chief says he's ready to, quote, start going on some offense. Fox News Chief White House correspondent Ed Henry with our report.
President Obama's aides are being vague about almost every detail of his big Wednesday speech about a strategy to defeat ISIS, including the logistics of whether it will be a primetime address. And as for the substance of dealing with ISIS, all they will reveal directly is what the president will not say.
The president's been pretty clear about what he's not contemplating. The president's not contemplating the deployment of combat boots on the ground into Iraq or Syria to deal with the situation.
That leaves the door open to what officials describe as a three-part strategy: continued U.S. airstrikes in Iraq, trying to stand up the Iraqi government, and then possibly expanding the airstrikes into Syria as part of a broader campaign that officials now say could take up to 3 years to defeat an enemy the president dismissed in January as the JV.
He ran for office under the notion that our national interest in the Middle East was to disengage as quickly as possible. It has led to a series of policy pronouncements and words that he's evicted, whether it's saying that the ISIL was the JV, whether it's setting red lines that weren't enforced.
In an interview with NBC News, the president insisted he was not referring to ISIS when he dismissed some terrorists in a January interview with The New Yorker.
Keep in mind, I wasn't specifically referring to ISIL.
A similar claim by White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest drew 4 Pinocchios by the Washington Post. And PolitiFact has declared that after consulting with The New Yorker, the president was referring on January 7th to the fact that the Islamic State had taken over the Iraqi city of Fallujah on January 3rd.
Why do you and the president continue to say something that has been proven to be false?
It's not proven to be false. The president was describing the wide variety of extremist groups that have sprouted up over the last several years in this region of the world. Some of them have greater capabilities than others. Some of them do not pose a threat to the homeland.
Former Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano said today, while ISIS was not the dominant source of concern, the White House knew about the threat before she left office in September 2013.
Yes, they were on everybody's radar screen.
Raising questions about why the president didn't give this big speech and lay out this strategy sooner. Meanwhile, the president will host the top 4 congressional leaders of both parties here at the White House on Tuesday, though officials are being vague about whether he will seek an actual vote to authorize new military force, saying only he wants a debate and, quote, buy-in from Congress. Lou?
Ed, thank you. Ed Henry. The Obama administration today renewed its plea for Congress to provide additional money to deal with the unaccompanied illegal children who've made it to our southern border. Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson says that without $1.2 billion in additional funding, he will be forced to take money from other accounts. Johnson notes only 3,141 unaccompanied minors crossed the border illegally in the month of August, compared with a high of 10,622 in June. Much of that decline attributed to the summer months. Joining us now, former Arkansas governor, host of Huckabee on the Fox News channel, Mike Huckabee. Mike, great to have you with us. Let's start out with, I love Mitch McConnell's statement. He said it's just about evading accountability at the polls to defer his fiat granting amnesty. What do you think?
Well, it's exactly what it is, Lou. I mean, many of these Democrats who are up for re-election, they know that they are going to be cooked in Barack Obama's hot water if he throws this pre-election immigration at them. They know they can't survive that. I mean, the American people are watching people roll across the border. Nobody has a clue where they are. Now the Homeland Security Secretary says, oh, and by the way, we need another $1.2 billion. I don't know where I'm going to get it. Well, frankly, I don't think if he's got to get money for it, let him get it from the countries where these people are coming from, the aid that we were going to send them. Take it from that. And if not, you know what? I bet the government can cut $1.2 billion and we'll make it just fine. No new money for this. That's what we ought to make very clear.
And the president saying that he should have anticipated the optics, as he put it on Meet the Press, about talking about the beheading of an American citizen, and then within minutes going to the golf course. He should have anticipated the optics.
You know, I was embarrassed for him, Lou.
Yeah.
Yeah, when he said that, I was embarrassed for him when he said it's about the optics. This is not the theater of the presidency, as he likes to call it. No, this is about judgment and priorities. He exercised very, very poor judgment when it came to getting off the phone with his family, rushing in, putting on a sports jacket long enough to say, gee, this is terrible, and 10 minutes later he's on the golf course yucking it up with his pals. And it shows a lack of priorities. The priority should have been to spend that afternoon, instead of on the golf course, talking to the military and intelligence people and deciding exactly how many different ways we could bomb the ever-loving stuffing out of ISIS that afternoon.
And you know, Governor, it also is about sensitivity, some feeling, honest emotion about the loss of a man's life who is an American citizen. Can both be true? A high five on a golf course and sincere condolences to the family of that young man. It seems to me to be horrible manners, a horrible insensitivity, as much as judgment or optics.
Well, that's why I say I don't think it's about optics. I really do believe that it shows that he just was so tuned into his vacation and tuned out from the job. Vacations are wonderful. We all need one from time to time. But there are some jobs from which you just don't get to take a vacation. You're called into duty. You're subject. It doesn't matter whether you're a neurosurgeon, the only one in the hospital who can do brain surgery, and somebody has a brain injury, they're going to call you in. And if you're on the golf course, your game's over. And if you're the President of the United States and you get an American who is beheaded, then I'm sorry, but your golf afternoon is going to have to be put on the back burner. And you've got to get to the top of the game, and it's not golf, it's being president. And he just simply failed at that task.
The Islamic State, we'll find out this week what the president's strategy is. We're told it's a three-stage strategy, the first stage of which is apparently underway, that is airstrikes against the Islamic State. Do you think he will ask Congress for their approval to proceed against the Islamic State?
I think he might, and the only reason is not because he has any respect whatsoever for Congress. I mean, on one hand, he's always talking about how he's going to go it alone, he's going to use his pen and a phone. But if there is a decision that he knows is going to make the people, his pals on the left, upset. Then he'll say, I'll go to Congress. And he's hoping to God they say no. That's what he's hoping. But this is why I find it so just frankly disingenuous of the president to pretend that he's going to go to Congress, because he really, really values their input. Lou, there's not been one indication in 6 years that he has any respect for the people's elected representatives, and he constantly tells us how he'd rather go it alone. And so, no, I don't think that he's going to Congress because that's what he wants to do. He's looking for an out so that he won't be able to, either one of two things. He won't go in to take ISIS because Congress says no, or they'll say yes, and then he'll tell his liberal pals, I didn't have a choice. Congress forced my hand. So either way, he's playing the game. That's it, playing the game.
This next question is only minimally facetious. Do you think he should ask Congress for their approval to continue to ignore Iran and its role in the sponsorship of terrorism, being responsible for a third of our casualties in Iraq, its alliance with Hamas, and its continued aggression against the state of Israel?
Absolutely. I mean, here's the sad thing. We loosened the screws on Iran, and since that time, the situation of the world has gotten much worse, not much better. Where does the funding from Hezbollah, Hamas, and ISIS largely come from? From Iran. Iran is the mothership for most of these terror groups, and what Iran doesn't supply, the Muslim Brotherhood does. And that's why it is so very important that we have a commander-in-chief who understands the nature of the problem, and rather than trying to make a deal with Iran, start treating our allies with some respect, our allies like Israel, and let Iran know they're not going to have a nuclear weapon, and they're not going to have any loosening of the sanctions until they dismantle all of their nuclear building capacities and the ability to weaponize it.
Governor Mike Huckabee, as always, great to have you with us. Good to see you. And be sure to tune in.
Thank you, Lou. Appreciate it.
You bet. Be sure to tune in to Huckabee on the Fox News Channel Saturday and Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern. We are coming right back.